Fleet Admiral John Carter stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Valiant watching the vast expanse of stars. This was humanity's moment of truth, first contact with the Zirconian Empire. After decades of searching the cosmos, humans had finally discovered they weren't alone. "Admiral, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Lisa Peterson, her voice steady despite the tension. Carter nodded. "Bring us in slowly. Remember our orders. Peaceful contact at all costs." The small human delegation consisted of just 3 ships. The Valiant led the way, flanked by the Intrepid and the Dauntless *. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human engineering, sleek, efficient, and armed with technology that had taken centuries to develop. As they approached the massive Zirconian station, Carter felt a flutter of anxiety. The alien structure dwarfed their vessels, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Its surface gleamed with an iridescent material unknown to human science. "They're hailing us, sir," Peterson reported. On screen, the communication panel flickered to life, revealing a tall, blue-skinned humanoid. The translator worked quickly, converting the alien's trilling speech into English. "Welcome, Earth vessels. I am Supreme Commander Zoltar of the Zirconian Empire. You may dock at Bay 17. Carter bowed slightly. "Thank you, Commander. We come in peace and friendship." The docking went smoothly. Carter led his delegation, 12 humans representing Earth's finest diplomats, scientists, and military leaders, into the massive assembly hall. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations filled the chamber, their appearances varying wildly from insectoid to gaseous forms. Supreme Commander Zoltar greeted them personally, towering over even the tallest human. "So this is the entire human delegation?" he asked, gesturing to their small group. "We represent 4 billion humans across 17 colonies," Carter explained. The alien commander circled them slowly. "And your fleet? These 3 vessels are all you brought?" "They're our finest ships," said Captain Greg Wilson proudly. "Each represents decades of innovation." Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. Carter noticed several of the delegates exchanging what appeared to be amused glances. Zoltar's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. "How quaint. The Zirconian Empire maintains a fleet of 10,000 warships. Even the smallest members of our alliance field at least several hundred vessels. Quality over quantity has always been humanity's approach," Carter replied diplomatically. This triggered open laughter from several delegates. Zoltar didn't bother hiding his amusement. "Forgive me, Admiral Carter, but in galactic politics, fleet size determines standing. Your tiny fleet suggests Earth is barely beyond primitive status." The diplomatic meeting deteriorated from there. Despite Earth's advanced technology, the Zirconians and their allies could focus only on the small number of human ships. Every suggestion made by the human delegation was dismissed. Every request for mutual protection agreements was met with condescension. During the formal banquet that evening, Lieutenant Peterson overheard disturbing conversations among the Zirconian officers. "Admiral," she whispered urgently, pulling Carter aside. "They're planning something. I heard them discussing how easily they could annex human territories." Carter frowned. "Are you certain?" "Positive, sir. They see us as weak because of our small fleet. They don't understand our technological capabilities." Later that night, as the human delegation prepared to depart, Supreme Commander Zoltar delivered his final assessment. "The Galactic Council acknowledges Earth's application for protected status," he announced formally. "However, given your limited defensive capabilities, we cannot guarantee your safety from ambitious elements. Perhaps you should consider becoming a protectorate of a stronger power." The threat was thinly veiled. As they returned to their ships, Carter's expression was grim. "Sir," said Peterson quietly, "what do we do now?" Carter stared out at the massive Zirconian warships surrounding their tiny fleet. "We prepare," he said simply. Because if I'm reading this situation correctly, we just made first contact with our first enemy. 6 months after the disastrous first contact, Fleet Admiral John Carter stood before the Earth Alliance Security Council. The holographic displays showed the unmistakable movement of Zarkonian forces toward human space. "They're coming," Carter said, pointing to the red markers advancing across the star map. 3 fleet groups moving toward our outer colonies. Intelligence suggests they'll reach New Eden within 30 days. Defense Minister Helen Rivera shook her head. "How many ships are we facing?" "Conservative estimates put it at 2,000 warships in the first wave alone," Carter replied. "We have 47 combat-ready vessels." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Can we negotiate?" asked a council member. Carter's expression hardened. "The Zarkonians see our small fleet as a sign of weakness. Every diplomatic message since first contact has been met with increasing demands. They want resource rights to all our outer colonies." "Then we evacuate," said Rivera. "Pull back to Earth and fortify. And abandon our colonists." "Billions of people can't be evacuated in time," Carter argued. "Besides, retreat will only confirm what they believe, that we're weak." The council debated for hours without reaching consensus. Finally, President Alan Foster stood. "Admiral Carter, you've been recalled to active fleet command. You have full authority to defend human space by whatever means necessary." Carter nodded grimly. "Thank you, Mr. President." At the Lumen Naval Yards, Captain Eric Winters searched through ancient military archives. Most officers focused on modern space combat theory, but Winters believed history offered forgotten lessons. "Sir, I found something," he told Carter, displaying centuries-old naval battle records. Earth navies once faced similar imbalances. When outnumbered, they developed specialized vessels and asymmetric tactics. Carter studied the files. "Interesting. But space combat is different from ocean warfare." "The principles remain, sir. Our ships are more advanced. We just need to leverage our advantages differently." Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Samantha Wright led a team of engineers working around the clock. "The problem isn't firepower," she explained to visiting officers. "It's deployment. Our ships can outgun theirs one-on-one, but we can't be everywhere at once." She unveiled a prototype weapons system that made even veteran commanders gasp. "We call it the Wasp Nest. Each deployment releases 500 microdrones with enough firepower to cripple ships 10 times their size." Across Earth and the inner colonies, preparations accelerated. Manufacturing centers converted to military production. Training facilities operated at triple capacity as volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Lieutenant Lisa Peterson, now serving as Carter's intelligence officer, delivered worrying news. "The Zarkonians are broadcasting their invasion plans openly, sir. They're calling it a minor border adjustment and mocking our defenses. Their commander told his troops they'd be home for their harvest festival." Carter's jaw tightened. Their arrogance might work in our favor. On Mars, the Alliance War Council assembled for a final strategy session. The debate grew heated as various admirals proposed different approaches. "We should consolidate our forces at key choke points," argued Admiral Ben Foster. "No, we need to strike first at their supply lines," countered Admiral Maria Jimenez. Carter listened patiently before stepping forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been thinking about this all wrong. The Zarkonians expect us to fight conventionally, to position our limited fleet against their overwhelming numbers." He activated a holographic display showing a radical new formation. "We won't." The plan he outlined was so unconventional that several officers openly scoffed. "This is madness," said Admiral Foster. "It violates every principle of space combat." Carter smiled thinly. "Exactly. And that's why it might work." As the council adjourned, Dr. Wright approached with urgent news. "Admiral, the prototype works. We can deploy within 2 weeks." Carter nodded. "Make it 1. The Zarkonians have accelerated their timetable." Across human space, civilians watched military vessels depart their orbital stations. The fleet seemed impossibly small against the coming storm, but something in Carter's confident stance gave them hope. The gathering storm was nearly upon them. The observation deck of the Luna Naval Yard buzzed with nervous energy as engineers and officers gathered around the viewport. Below them, floating in the construction bay, was humanity's answer to the Zarkonian threat, the first completed Hornet-class vessel. "It's so small," whispered an aide to Admiral Carter. Carter nodded. "That's the point. The ship measured barely 100 meters in length, tiny compared to standard Alliance cruisers and microscopic next to the kilometer-long Zarkonian dreadnoughts. Yet its sleek, angular design hinted at something lethal. Each Hornet carries firepower equivalent to 3 conventional destroyers," explained Dr. Samantha Wright, pride evident in her voice. "We've eliminated crew quarters, life support for large teams, and redundant systems. Everything serves one purpose: combat efficiency." Captain Olivia Martinez approached, her uniform crisp despite not having slept in 36 hours. "My crew is ready for the test run, Admiral." "You understand the risks?" Carter asked. Martinez nodded grimly. "Somebody has to prove these work in actual combat conditions." Within hours, Martinez and her crew of just 12 launched aboard the prototype Hornet, designated HCS-001 Stinger *. Their mission: penetrate the outer edge of Zarkonian-controlled space, engage any scouts, and return with combat data. Back on Earth, engineer Paul Rodriguez led a team making final adjustments to the stealth systems that would make the tiny vessels nearly invisible to enemy sensors. "The reflective coating absorbs 98% of scan emissions," he explained to visiting officers. "Combined with the heat sink technology, they'll register as space debris unless they're firing weapons." In a separate facility beneath the Atlantic, technicians activated the Diana Combat AI for the first time. Unlike previous military computers, Diana was designed to coordinate swarms of vessels acting in perfect harmony. "Good morning, Diana," said Dr. Wright. The AI's melodic voice responded. "Good morning, Dr. Wright. Fleet coordination protocols active. All systems nominal." Meanwhile, Zarkonian intelligence agents intercepted fragments of information about Earth's defensive preparations. Supreme Commander Zaltar reviewed the reports with amusement. "They're building smaller ships?" he asked incredulously. "Have they learned nothing? Perhaps they believe hiding will save them." His advisors laughed, but one junior officer looked troubled. "Supreme Commander, our scouts report unusual energy signatures from Earth's shipyards." "Irrelevant," Zaltar dismissed. "No technological advantage can overcome our numerical superiority. Prepare the invasion timetable." 3 days later, Captain Martinez's Stinger returned from its mission. The small vessel showed battle damage, but as the airlock opened, Martinez stepped out with a triumphant smile. "We encountered a Zarkonian patrol, 3 cruisers," she reported to Admiral Carter. "They never saw us coming. 2 destroyed, 1 crippled, and we sustained only minor damage." The news electrified Earth's military command. Production of Hornet-class vessels accelerated to round-the-clock schedules. Every available shipyard across the inner colonies converted to building the small, deadly ships. Lieutenant Peterson updated the strategic situation map daily, watching as Zarkonian forces continued their advance. "They're still coming in conventional formation," she noted. 3 main battle groups, heavy ships at the center, screening vessels on the perimeter. Carter studied the display. "They're fighting the last war." Good. By the final week before the expected invasion, 50 Hornet-class vessels had been completed. Each carried revolutionary weapon systems and required minimal crew. The Diana AI had been distributed across the fleet, allowing the small force to function as a unified organism. Engineer Rodriguez rushed into Carter's office with final test results. "The stealth systems exceed specifications, sir. In trials, Zarkonian sensor arrays detected our ships only when they were less than 5 kilometers away." Carter nodded with satisfaction. And by then, it's too late. On the eve of the invasion, Carter addressed the commanders of the tiny fleet. Their faces showed determination despite the overwhelming odds. "They mock our tiny fleet," Carter said calmly. "Let them mock. They've mistaken size for strength, numbers for power. Tomorrow, they'll learn what humanity can accomplish when backed into a corner." The commanders saluted as Carter finished. "Remember, stay connected to Diana. Follow the swarm protocols, and hit them where they don't expect us. History isn't written by the largest force, but by the smartest." As the meeting concluded, the first reports arrived of Zarkonian vessels entering the Epsilon system. The hour of reckoning had come. The red emergency lights bathed the colony of New Haven in an eerie glow as evacuation sirens wailed. Thousands of civilians rushed toward transport ships, carrying only what they could in small bags. Colonial Defense Force officers directed the crowds, their faces grim but determined. "Keep moving. Priority to children and medical cases," shouted Major Susan Clark, watching as the massive Zarkonian fleet appeared on the long-range scanners. "We have less than 6 hours before they enter orbit." In orbit above New Haven, Lieutenant Kevin Barnes piloted his small reconnaissance vessel just beyond the colony's moon. His mission was critical and extremely dangerous. Gather final intelligence on the approaching enemy fleet before the battle began. "Diana, enhance visual on the lead vessels," he instructed the AI. Enhancing, the artificial intelligence responded. "Analysis complete. Enemy fleet consists of 2,247 combat vessels. Configuration matches previous intelligence. They maintain standard Zarkonian battle formation." Barnes whistled softly. The enemy ships filled his view screen, stretching out in seemingly endless rows. He activated his quantum communicator. "Recon to command. Confirming enemy numbers and formation. They're moving exactly as predicted. No deviation from standard tactics. Aboard the Alliance command vessel Defiant Asterisk." Admiral Carter received the transmission with a grim nod. Around him, staff officers monitored dozens of displays showing the final preparations for humanity's defense. "Lieutenant Barnes has done his job," Carter announced. "Now let's do ours. Initiate Operation Hornet's Nest." Throughout the command center, officers relayed orders to the scattered human fleet. 50 Hornet-class vessels moved into their starting positions, hidden within asteroid fields, behind moons, and in the shadow of gas giants. Each tiny ship carried enough firepower to threaten vessels many times their size. Carter turned to his assembled officers. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 1 hour we face the greatest threat humanity has ever encountered. The Zarkonians expect us to fight conventionally, to position our ships in a defensive line, and be overwhelmed by their numbers." He gestured to the holographic display, showing the human vessels scattered across the star system. "Instead, we'll fight like our ancestors did when facing superior forces. We'll strike from shadows, hit vulnerable points, and disappear before they can respond." Captain Martinez raised a concern. "Sir, our allies from the Proxima colonies have offered reinforcements. Should we wait for them?" Carter shook his head. "Their ships aren't equipped with our new technology. They'd be detected and destroyed immediately. Besides, I won't risk more lives than necessary." On New Eden, the most vulnerable human colony, Governor Ray Parker supervised the last civilian evacuation ships. "That's it," he reported to command. "All non-essential personnel evacuated. Only defense forces remain." "Understood, Governor," Carter replied. "Your militia should withdraw to the hardened bunkers. This won't be like any battle they've trained for." As the enemy fleet approached, several smaller races who had previously allied with Earth began to distance themselves. The Arcturian ambassador sent a formal message withdrawing their support. "We regret this decision," the message read, "but we cannot sacrifice our people in a hopeless battle." Carter didn't blame them. From the outside, Earth's defense looked pitiful. A handful of small ships against the might of an empire. In his quarters, Admiral Carter reviewed the battle plan one final time. The strategy violated every conventional rule of space combat, but conventional tactics would mean certain defeat. He touched the small photograph of his family on Earth, then returned to the command center. Enemy fleet entering optimal engagement range in 30 minutes, reported Lieutenant Peterson. All ships maintain stealth protocols. Carter ordered. Weapons hot, but hold fire until my command. Throughout the system, the crews of 50 human vessels waited in tense silence. Many said quiet prayers or reviewed final messages from loved ones. Captain Martinez addressed her small crew aboard the Stinger Asterisk. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. And remember, they have no idea what's about to hit them. The massive Zarkonian fleet continued its advance, its commanders confident in their overwhelming superiority. Supreme Commander Zaltar stood on his flagship's bridge, already planning how he would distribute the conquered human territories among his officers. Contact their pathetic fleet, he ordered. Offer them one final chance to surrender before we begin the slaughter. The message went out, echoing across all frequencies. In response, there was only silence. Supreme Commander Zaltar frowned at the silent communications panel. He had expected the humans to beg for mercy, or at least respond with defiance. Instead, there was nothing. Scan the system again, he ordered. Find their fleet. The Zarkonian sensor officer worked his controls with growing confusion. Supreme Commander, we detect only minor energy signatures. There appears to be almost nothing here. Impossible. Zaltar slammed his fist on the command console. Their colony is right there. They must have defenses. On the massive view screen, New Eden hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Its orbital platforms were empty, its defense systems silent. Perhaps they fled, suggested his second-in-command. Zaltar laughed harshly. Fled? To where? No, they're hiding. Waiting. Commence the invasion as planned. Move forward with the first wave. As 500 Zarkonian warships moved toward New Eden, officers across their fleet began mocking the humans openly. Such cowards. Where is their tiny fleet now? This will be the easiest victory in Imperial history. Aboard the Stinger Asterisk, hidden in the shadow of New Eden's moon, Captain Olivia Martinez watched the enemy advance. Her finger hovered over the transmit button, waiting for the signal. Throughout the system, the other 49 human vessels did the same. Each ship had been precisely positioned according to the battle plan. Each crew breathed slowly, controlling their nerves. In his command center, Admiral Carter watched as the Zarkonian ships passed the invisible line he had drawn across his tactical display. Now, he said simply. The single word flashed across every human vessel simultaneously. Captain Martinez pressed her transmit button. Diana, execute attack pattern Alpha, she commanded. The AI responded instantly, executing attack pattern Alpha. All units responding. Across the star system, 50 tiny ships ignited their engines simultaneously. They moved with extraordinary speed, emerging from hiding places the Zarkonians had never thought to check. On the Zarkonian flagship, alarms suddenly blared. Multiple contacts, shouted the sensor officer. Small vessels approaching from everywhere. The humans? Zaltar demanded. Yes, but there are only a few dozen ships. They're absurdly small. Zaltar relaxed. So they did stay to fight. How brave and foolish. Target and destroy them. But targeting proved nearly impossible. The human vessels moved with unprecedented maneuverability, changing direction in ways that defied conventional space tactics. The Zarkonian targeting computers couldn't lock onto them. Commander Nickel Jackson led the first strike group directly into the heart of the enemy formation. Her squadron of 7 Hornets weaved between massive Zarkonian cruisers. Remember your targets, she told her pilots. Engines and command centers only. The tiny human ships released swarms of microdrones. Each drone carried a single high-yield explosive charge. Thousands of the devices surrounded Zarkonian ships, overwhelming their point defense systems. The first explosions rippled through the alien fleet. "What is happening?" Zoltar demanded as his tactical display showed ships going dark. "Their weapons, they're not trying to destroy our vessels," his officer reported with disbelief. "They're precisely targeting propulsion systems and bridge sections." Within minutes, 30 Zarkonian warships had been immobilized. Their crews were alive but helpless as their ships drifted, unable to maneuver or fight back. Zoltar ordered his fleet to regroup, but the human vessels were already executing their second attack phase. They moved in perfect coordination, as though all 50 ships were controlled by a single mind. Diana coordinated the assault, processing battlefield data and adjusting tactics faster than any organic commander could. The AI directed ships to exploit weaknesses, concentrate fire where needed, and withdraw when threatened. On an observation platform near Jupiter, representatives from 12 alien races watched the battle unfold with stunned expressions. They had come to witness what they expected would be humanity's final stand. Instead, they were seeing a revolution in space combat. "Remarkable," whispered the Arcturian ambassador who had withdrawn support hours earlier. "They're not trying to match the Zarkonian numbers. They're making numbers irrelevant." As the battle entered its second hour, the humans had disabled nearly 100 enemy vessels without losing a single ship. The massive Zarkonian fleet, designed for traditional engagements against similar forces, couldn't adapt to the humans' unconventional tactics. "This is impossible." Zoltar raged as another squadron of his ships reported critical damage. "They're nothing. A tiny fleet of insignificant vessels." The battle entered its fifth hour as Zarkonian reinforcements poured into the system. 300 fresh warships emerged from light speed, their weapons charged and ready. "The humans cannot maintain this pace," Zoltar transmitted to his battered fleet. "Their tiny ships must be running low on ammunition and fuel. Press the attack." But the Zarkonians had misunderstood a fundamental aspect of the Hornet-class vessels. The human ships weren't designed for extended battles. They were designed to end fights quickly. Admiral Carter watched the reinforcements arrive with calm determination. Diana assessed the new threat and adjust strategy. "Assessment complete," replied the AI. "Implementing countermeasure Beta 7. The human vessels, which had scattered across the battlefield, suddenly converged into tight formations of 5 ships each. Each formation targeted a single Zarkonian command vessel. Aboard the Stinger Captain Martinez received new orders. "Form up on Vector Squadron. We're taking down their new flagship." Her pilot responded instantly, guiding the small ship into formation with 4 others. Together, they accelerated toward the massive Zarkonian vessel leading the reinforcements. On the periphery of the battle, a damaged human ship drifted with failing engines. Zarkonian cruisers moved to capture it, sensing an easy victory. "Corporal Frank Miller, Weapons Station," announced the ship's captain. "Our engines are gone, but weapons are still operational. Make them count." Miller nodded grimly. As 3 enemy vessels surrounded them, he unleashed the ship's remaining arsenal. The explosion crippled all 3 Zarkonian cruisers, buying time for nearby human ships to retreat and regroup. Back at Earth Command, Dr. Laura Adams monitored data streams from the battlefield. "Admiral, the shield technology is performing beyond expectations. The Zarkonians haven't adapted to the frequency modulation." The revolutionary shields represented humanity's greatest technological leap. Unlike conventional energy barriers, these shields changed frequency thousands of times per second, making them nearly impossible to penetrate with sustained fire. In the command center of the Zarkonian flagship, growing panic was evident. Officers who had mocked the tiny fleet hours earlier now watched in horror as their ships were systematically disabled. "Their shields absorb everything we throw at them," reported the weapons officer. "And their targeting is perfect, too perfect. They must be using artificial intelligence," realized the Zarkonian science officer. "No organic pilots could coordinate so precisely." Supreme Commander Zoltar refused to accept defeat. "Bring all remaining ships into tight formation. They cannot attack us all at once. This was precisely what Admiral Carter had been waiting for. Diana, initiate Wasp Nest Protocol. Across the battlefield, human vessels launched their most devastating weapons. Each ship released thousands of microdrones that swarmed toward the concentrated Zarkonian fleet. Brace for impact, Martines warned her crew as they launched their own swarm. The drones enveloped the enemy ships like a metallic cloud. Rather than explosive damage, these drones attached themselves to hull sections and emitted powerful electromagnetic pulses. Ship after ship lost power, their systems overloaded by the coordinated attack. On the observation platform, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence. What had begun as a certain extermination of humanity had transformed into a stunning demonstration of tactical brilliance. The humans never needed a large fleet, observed one ambassador. They've changed the nature of space combat itself. In a desperate final stand, the Zarkonian flagship turned its main cannon toward New Eden's moonbase, where human civilians had taken shelter. If we cannot have victory, neither will they, Zoltar growled. Captain Martinez saw the weapon charging. All ships converge on the flagship. Maximum speed. 5 human vessels executed a perfect attack run, targeting the flagship's weapon arrays with precision strikes. The massive cannon exploded before it could fire, tearing a hole in the flagship's hull. Diana's voice came through on all channels. Flagship neutralized. Strategic victory achieved. After 6 hours of battle, the result was clear. Over half the Zarkonian fleet had been disabled or destroyed. The remainder were in disarray, their formations broken, their command structure in chaos. Admiral Carter opened a channel to the enemy flagship. Supreme Commander Zoltar, this is Fleet Admiral John Carter of the Earth Alliance. Your fleet is defeated. Do you wish to continue this unnecessary bloodshed, or shall we discuss terms? On screens throughout human space, people watched as the massive Zarkonian fleet, once so confident in its overwhelming numbers, began to retreat. 3 months after the Battle of New Eden, Ambassador Daniel Clark stood in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Assembly. The same room where humans had once been mocked now fell silent as he approached the speaker's podium. Representatives from 200 alien civilizations watched with newfound respect. The Earth Alliance thanks the Assembly for this opportunity to address recent events, Clark began. We come not to celebrate victory, but to establish lasting peace. In the front row, a delegation of Zarkonians sat with chastened expressions. Their once mighty empire had been forced to sign a peace treaty after 3 more failed offensives against human space. Each attempt had ended in defeat at the hands of Earth's tiny fleet. Supreme Commander Zoltar was noticeably absent, removed from power by his own government after the humiliating defeats. Humanity has never sought dominance, Clark continued. We ask only for respect and the right to exist without threat. The recent conflict was unnecessary and avoidable. As he spoke, images appeared on the chamber's massive displays showing the innovative human vessels that had changed galactic warfare forever. The Hornet-class ships were now famous throughout known space. Back on Earth, Captain Andrea Morris led a procession of returning vessels through the orbital defense platforms. Cheering crowds gathered at viewports to watch the heroes return home. Each tiny ship had been decorated with battle honors, their hulls still bearing scars from combat. I never thought I'd see a parade for 50 ships, remarked an elderly veteran to his grandchildren. In my day, we thought bigger meant better. At Luna Naval Yard, Admiral Carter supervised the expansion of humanity's fleet. New construction bays were building improved versions of the Hornet-class vessels, along with specialized support craft. Earth had learned its lesson. Quality would always be their advantage over quantity. Admiral, the Nisharan delegation has arrived, announced Lieutenant Peterson. They're eager to discuss the Defense Pact. Carter nodded. Following humanity's victory, many smaller galactic powers had reached out for protection and technology sharing. Nations that had once dismissed Earth now sought its friendship. "Show them to the conference room," Carter replied, "and bring the technical specifications they requested." In a surprising development, even the Zarkonians had requested human assistance. Their massive but outdated fleet was being partially decommissioned in favor of smaller, more effective vessels based on human designs. "It's ironic," Dr. Wright told a group of visiting officials as they toured her laboratory. "The very empire that mocked our tiny fleet is now copying it." The officials laughed, but their eyes showed genuine interest as Wright demonstrated the next generation of human technology. On New Eden, now a symbol of human resilience, Governor Parker welcomed delegations from across the galaxy. The colony had become a cultural center where species could learn about Earth's unique history. "Humans have always faced overwhelming odds," Parker explained to a group of alien visitors. "From our earliest tribal conflicts to world wars to our expansion into space, we survived by innovation, not numbers." In the colony's main museum, a special exhibition explained humanity's long experience with asymmetric warfare, from ancient guerrilla tactics to modern space combat. Visitors were particularly fascinated by displays showing how Earth's historical underdogs had defeated superior forces through clever strategy. At the Earth Alliance headquarters, President Foster signed formal defense treaties with 12 formerly neutral powers. Each had witnessed the Battle of New Eden and recognized that humanity's approach to warfare had changed the galactic balance forever. "We welcome our new friends," Foster announced to the assembled diplomats. "Together, we will ensure peace through mutual respect, not intimidation." As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Carter slipped away to the observation deck. Below him, construction teams worked on the next generation of human vessels. They were still small by galactic standards, but now everyone understood their capability. A young cadet approached nervously. "Admiral Carter, I just wanted to thank you. My family was on New Eden during the battle. You saved them." Carter smiled and placed a hand on the cadet's shoulder. "It wasn't me. It was every person who believed we could win despite the odds. Remember that lesson, cadet. Size and numbers aren't what make a fleet powerful. It's the hearts and minds of those who serve in it." As sunset painted Earth's atmosphere in brilliant colors, distant ships could be seen returning from patrol. Tiny points of light against the vastness of space. No one would ever mock them again.